Hi, I'm Bill Michaels with Virginia Secretary of Agriculture and Forestry, Katie Frazier. Katie, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for coming up, Bill, and meeting with me.
So we are promoting agriculture across the Middle Peninsula and the Northern Neck as we get ready for FarmAid. It's coming
Yeah.
to Virginia Beach on the 26th of September. A
Yes.
lot of great artists there, including 93-year-old Willie Nelson.
93? I did not
90,
realize he was
yes,
93 years old. Well, I am super glad that I'm going to get to see him then. He's been on my bucket list for a very long time.
certainly is.
Yes.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about farming and agriculture across the Northern Neck and the Middle Peninsula. First, though, I want to ask, how often do you get out to our area across the Northern Neck and the Middle Peninsula? It's absolutely gorgeous.
It is. It is beautiful. Not as often as I would like. Probably, if I could, once a day, once a week would be my preference. But have gotten to be out there a few times in the first 6, 7 months of our administration. Obviously, we just started in January, but had a chance to head to the Northern Net to speak with Soil and Water Conservation District. Have visited a couple of our aquaculture industries there. We are in the process right now of hosting a series of listening sessions around the state for agriculture and forestry industries for our Farm and Forest Prosperity Plan. And so we recently had one in the Northern Neck, and actually it was one of our largest attendees. So we were really excited to see that. But I definitely want to get out a little bit more. Got to join a small green wheat tour earlier in the year. But as the fall comes into season and we start to see some harvest, I definitely want to be able to get out.
So what is one of the first things you notice when you come to that part of Virginia?
Well, one, it's flat. I grew up in the mountains, and so when the first time I visited, the Mid Peninsula and Northern Neck, I realized just how very flat Virginia can really be. And also, what y'all refer to as a river is not the same as what I grew up referring to a river. Your rivers look much more like oceans
Yes.
to me. But I also, am always struck by the diversity that is, agriculture and forestry in our aquaculture industry in that region of Virginia. Across the board, Virginia is incredibly diverse. And I like to say we can grow everything from A to Z, which is true. But I think the Northern Neck really, and the Mid Peninsula really, indemnifies that. It is a special, special place where, farming and forestry and agriculture have been happening for hundreds of years in the Commonwealth. When we think about our roots here, it is squarely in that area. And yet there's so much diversity, so much agritourism, so many opportunities for people to be able to engage directly with farmers. We've got the growing, again, hopefully resurgence of our aquaculture industry, from shellfish aquaculture to hopefully putting some type of management plan in place for our blue catfish and controlling that invasive species and being able to provide that product out to a lot of folks. So I really do think it's the diversity and then the commitment of the communities to retaining their rural character and really making the investments that matter.
So
there as
what
well.
what do the farmers across our region have to say to you? What are their concerns and their thoughts about farming and the future of farming?
Yeah. Well, I think farmers in general are some of the most resilient individuals I have ever had the pleasure of working with and coming across. They are the type of people who can work, a 15, 18-hour day and then get up the next day and do it again, even when there are global food prices that are all over the board. Even when gas prices have significantly increased for them to be able to operate their equipment. When every input that they have is going up, and when we think about what their markets look like, it is very volatile right now. We've also, obviously, we had a late season freeze that impacted some of our small grain crop and the quality there. Followed by the drought that impacted many areas of the state. But what I hear is people want access to markets. They want reliability. They want stability, and they want somebody who listens. And so typically when I go out, the first thing that I do is just sit down and open myself up to hear what the opportunities are, where we can do better, and where the where the real needs are to be able to bring the resources that the state can, and hopefully our federal partners can as well, to bear to be able to really lift up those farmers.
So you mentioned the drought. How are we doing? We've had rainfall recently. Yeah. It's made a little bit of a dent, but how far are we from really having replenished the water supply?
Yeah, so it depends on surface water versus groundwater. And so our drought task force is meeting on a every other week basis. Things have improved across the state. We still have one area down in the Roanoke region and south side, Southern Virginia, that is seeing some continued impacts. They have been in a bubble where they haven't gotten as much rainfall as others. But it definitely has improved. I think, as harvest season starts, we'll see what, kind of the yield impacts are. We have been dealing with the impacts of the spring drought for our livestock producers, and particularly with our hay crop. So we're actively working through right now what we can do to help better support them as they move into winter feeding, since we had a significantly diminished hay crop moving forward. On groundwater, and obviously, the Eastern Virginia region is dependent on groundwater as well. Those resources take longer to be able to, come back up as rainfall happens. So right now, I think surface water is doing much better. We've seen some improvement in soil moisture for our ag operations. And, hopefully we'll continue to see the timely rainfall so that our groundwater resources will be able to recharge as well.
We're speaking with Virginia Secretary of Agriculture and Forestry, Katie Frazier. So, Katie, we've talked a little bit about farmers. How do we entice the next generation of farmers? There's the expense of land, the expense of equipment. I mean, this is not a cheap industry to get into.
No, it is not. So before I came to the Secretary's office, I worked for Farm Credit, and they're an agricultural lender. So got to know that side of the business, if you will, very, very closely. And what I would say is you're right. Getting into agriculture is not inexpensive, but those that want to do it are really driven by passion. And, sometimes it's a familial, connection that they have. But so many producers that I'm talking to now, and young farmers in particular, are first generation agriculture, which is really exciting. So for me, it really starts in thinking about where our workforce for the future begins. You can't see it here, but on the other side of my office is my FFA jacket. So I have career and technical education, FFA, my ag classes, to thank for helping me discover a career in agriculture. I didn't grow up on a farm. I grew up in a very farming intensive area, but I was not, living and working on a farm. And so FFA was my kind of entry point in to really understanding what a career in agriculture could be and how rewarding that is. So certainly our CTE programs in our education system are critically important. We're working in partnership with teachers, with local school divisions, with our partners in Department of Education and our Secretary of Education to think about what those pathways need to look like for agriculture in the future. We also have a Virginia Office of Working Lands at the Department of Forestry. So they do everything from hold easements for conservation of working farms and forests to working through succession plan resources through cooperative extension and other partners to help producers think about how do you enter into agriculture, either transitioning from one generation to the other or getting in if you're not already a producer.
All right, so we're driving down Route 3, we're driving down 17, We're driving into Matthews or Northumberland. What is something that typical Virginian does not notice or does not know is going on these farms?
Yeah. So one, I would say, I think a lot of times people see kind of vast farmland and they think, oh, this must be a very large farmer. And the reality is that the majority of our farms in Virginia are small family-owned operations, so I do think sometimes, we kind of get caught in a rhetoric of it's large versus small. And in Virginia, our basis is really those small and mid-sized farming operations. And even those that are larger, they are family-owned and operated, and really maintain that. So that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is that the amount of conservation practices that are happening for water quality, for soil health, are tremendous. The shift that I have seen in the 20 plus years that I've been in this industry of thinking about what kind of conservation practices our farmers are implementing on the ground is significant. Virginia just appropriated $304 million in agricultural best management practice cost share funding. That is a record amount. And what that means is that the state is going to be able to partner with our farmers in putting practices on their farms, in their fields that will support both water quality and healthy living soil. And then the other piece is that I talk to so many people who think traditionally of, farming as something that is not technology driven, and that couldn't be further from the truth. When you have tractors that have GPS sensing to be able to then determine on a plot by plot basis what type of nutrient applications are needed. They're using drones to apply different products to the fields that are needed, or to put in cover crops so that they can minimize the impact on the soil. There's all sorts of monitoring data that is happening now. And even in our shellfish aquaculture industry, I had the opportunity to visit one of our our oyster houses, and they are using AI scanners to be able to determine what the value is of a single oyster, which, if you think about it, that kind of investment that's happening in these operations is, one, sizable, but two, really exciting for the future. That I think there's just lots of opportunities for people who want to get into agriculture and aquaculture and forestry to think about how they can maybe leverage some of the technology that they're using in their everyday life and really see it on the farms.
All right,
well.
so I've got to ask you, you mentioned the seafood,
Yeah.
and we know regular, what we could consider traditional farming. What does your office encompass? It's a lot.
It's a lot. Yes, it is. So we have the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. So that typically is your more traditional, produce safety, meat and poultry inspections, dairies, row crops, grain inspections to make sure that when we're exporting our grain, it's high quality. Everything from that to, at the Department of Agriculture, they also have weights and measures. So they're the people who are going out to make sure that the gas that you're getting is actually the amount of gas and it's the quality that should meet. They also have the Office of the State Veterinarian. So they work with companion and large animals. So it is a very diverse agency serving so many Virginians in ways that I think people have, no idea. And then we also have the Virginia Department of Forestry. That's everything from working with individual landowners on forest management plans, reforestation of timber land. We have a softwood and a hardwood nursery operations in Virginia. So we're growing the seed stock that we need to be able to reforest our properties. And then they also are charged with urban and community outreach, education, working lands preservation, conservation easements, and wildfire suppression. So the same foresters who are out in the field working with a producer or a landowner one day might also then the next day be out dealing with a brush fire in a particular area as well.
Wine and Christmas trees?
Wine and Christmas trees. Let's see, aquaculture. I'm trying to think what I'm going to, controlled environment agriculture, so greenhouse facilities. And then we also have the Virginia Racing Commission as well. So wow. Live and historic horse racing. That's been a really exciting space to be able to see the growth and resurgence of live racing in Virginia, and a little bit of everything else, I think, in between within our secretariat.
I'm speaking with Virginia Secretary of Agriculture and Forestry, Katie Frazier. So we talked at the beginning of this about FarmAid coming to Virginia. What does a program like FarmAid mean to the Commonwealth of Virginia and our farmers?
Yeah, well, I think it's been quite a while since we've gotten to host FarmAid, and I think it really does show that Virginia does have a thriving agriculture industry here, and it is made up of all sizes, shapes, and types of farms. And so having the opportunity to be able to showcase that with FarmAid and the support that then it offers for farmers with financial support, with mental health resources, with business planning resources, that, you know, the proceeds from the FarmAid will actually be able to go back to, is really, really exciting. That was one of the first things that I was told as I was coming in, and I had to be very hush hush about it for a long time. So I'm so excited to be able to celebrate it now, and to be able to offer to people who are attending, and then hopefully also those who maybe aren't able to be there but are going to tune in elsewhere, you know, just a real picture of what Virginia agriculture is and what they could experience when they want to come here and buy our products.
And CNN, I heard today, is going to be airing the concerts live.
Excellent.
So, yeah,
Excellent.
you'll be able to watch it.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I'll plan on being there in person.
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, Katie, thank you so much for your time today. I certainly appreciate you sharing your knowledge and all the information about Virginia's Department of Agriculture.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes, you're very welcome. Thanks for coming.